So, welcome to the next edition of the Rare Business Podcast. With me today, I have John Huehn, who is In the Chat's founder and CEO. Hi, John.
Hi, Adrian. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, sir. I'm very well. And so,
Great.
John, for the benefit of our listeners and readers, can you tell us a little bit about you and a bit about the work that you do?
Absolutely, Adrian. I'm the CEO of In the Chat, founder. Our background for the company is in the social media space. We provide an enterprise-grade sales and service platform that's deployed primarily in the banking and telecom verticals for social. Then in June of last year, we added text messaging capabilities to that platform that ensures that mobile consumers, be they texters or tweeters, can get customer service on the go conveniently and quietly, on their device.
Okay, fantastic. Now, it was the text messaging that sort of piqued my interest when you talked about, you acquired it and that's where you were growing your platform. Because, when we were talking before, I don't think text messaging, particularly as a customer service channel, it doesn't get the press that it deserves, but it can offer real benefits. Why do you think it doesn't get the press that it deserves?
Yeah, I think the press side on text messaging is just picking up now. And if I kind of look at the history of customer service, I'd say that, companies went from phone to email to chat, kind of jumped over text messaging and went straight to social, and now we're cycling back. And when you think about it, the texting going mainstream and social going mainstream both kind of happened at the same time frame. You think about, prior to the iPhone launch, you'll remember what it was like trying to text on a flip phone, right? Like I was typing 222 to get C.
Right.
Then when the iPhone launched, that's when, most people had the ability to take this and get this mainstream. Like, of course, younger folks were picking that stuff up, pretty early on, even in the flip phone space. But anyway, that was really, that 5-6 years ago time frame that you saw, iPhone take off and texting take off in mainstream, which was the same time ultimately that Twitter and Facebook were going, were really growing, out at the same time. And so, you think about it from the company perspective. I had my email, my chat, and then I jumped to social. I had to go after social because social was so highly public.
Right.
And so most companies jumped over text and went straight to social because it was so highly public. But now, what companies are starting to pick up on is I like that convenience. Really, the main two reasons folks, go after social as a service channel is, number one, I'm angry and I want to out you publicly, which is actually truly the minority. And the second is just, it's conveniently there on my device. I open up Twitter, I send you a message, I move on with my life, you respond, I pick it up when I'm ready, and we carry forward. But what texting offers is that ability to have that same kind of conversation conveniently on your device, without having to sit in front of your computer for chat or be on the phone in potentially a noisy space or in the middle of a meeting. I can have that same conversation, but I can have it privately through the text channel. So I think traditionally that's why we haven't seen text, as a big channel that was picking up a lot of noise, and why we're starting to see that today. Given the choice for many of us, would I rather, publicly tweet with my bank or privately text with my bank? I think we'll find that many would rather go that way.
That's a fair point. And do you think that applies across the age groups, or do you think that's more aligned to different sort of generations?
Yeah, the great part is we now see texting as something that's pervasive across, the generations. And so, at all age groups, if you look at studies at this point, all age groups are involved in texting. For sure, the younger generations are, it's ubiquitous to them. They've grown up with that texting space. So that millennial group is for sure way out front of this. But I think just, putting it in context, 60% of North American homes with all the members under 35 years of age, have no home phone. But 40% of total U.S. households have now gone cellular only.
Okay.
So,
wow.
When I think about, that deployment, then I can look at it as great. So across the use groups, we know that folks are, changing their patterns. So if I built a call center that's phone only, and I look at how this pattern is changing, then I probably need to start thinking about that. And, just the context, millennials are sending and receiving on average about 4,000 text messages a month. And if that group's going to account for 31% of our economy by the time we hit 2020, we just really need to think about what channels do they want to be served on, and how do we plan for those accordingly.
4,000 text messages a month. Blimey.
On average, yeah, that's in the millennial group, yeah.
That makes me wonder what else they do, or they've got really big thumbs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Crumbs.
But I mean, that's a communications preference, right? Like that's, people need to think about, as I look from a customer service perspective, as an enterprise, I need to think about, look at my business from the outside in, and what are the channels that my customers want to use to communicate, and how do I make those channels available to them, for sure.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, then the other thing we were talking about earlier on as well is, and this is, I guess, where we get into the sort of the business reality of it. I mean, there may be a bunch of either customer service or customer experience professionals or leaders that are listening to this, and they might start rolling their eyes and go, God, another channel. But you said a really interesting thing, and I guess this is where the business reality is, because you shared some figures with me that said if you implement this type of this technology and implement this as a channel, you can really save quite a lot of money on your customer service or operations. I mean, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and I'll again put it in the context. You always got to remember, we think about things at an enterprise scale, so it's large scale businesses, and
sure.
What we know with texting that's different is, it's not that it's, eliminating calls, but it's deflection to a lower cost channel. So I think the way that we got to think about this is moving calls into a lower cost channel. So versus a phone call, for example, we all know phone calls are one-to-one. You call in, I talk to you.
Right.
In the texting channel, on average, with our customer base so far in the chat, we'll see that it is fair for an agent to manage between 3 to 5 text messaging conversations concurrently. So the concurrency brings great efficiency. And how can they do that? Well, of course, I send a message. The customer's busy writing their message. I can engage. But also texting is a channel that's a little different than even chat, where I'm sitting in front of my computer and I'm expecting that back and forth to occur in real time. In text, I understand that, I myself as the customer may engage with you in a conversation, then maybe I'm stepping into a meeting for an hour, or I'm having dinner with my family for an hour, and I'm going to pick up that conversation again, when it's time for me to, I have the time to engage with you again.
Right.
So the concurrency level can be very high in the text channel, which makes that, efficiency very high. It's also a very short message type that comes in. In texting, there's still perceived value on text, though most people in the world are now, on an unlimited texting plan. There's still perceived value on text. And like people think about Twitter being 146 characters or 140 characters, they think about text being, 160 characters or 136 characters, depending where in the world you are. Mm-hmm. So there's a perceived value. So that conversation happens on the phone. Oh, I had my bill, but Fluffy just took it and ran across the room with it. Let me go chase down Fluffy and get my bill back. That conversation doesn't happen over text. It's very much, I have a question. This is my question. What's my answer?
Sure.
And so you get a very quick conversation, in a very efficient environment on the text channel. And that's where folks are seeing that cost savings that come through with that, outside of, revenue growth opportunities that can exist through the channel as well, and outside of the customer satisfaction and loyalty lift that you get by offering service in the channel of choice.
So, I mean, if I think about that, I mean, so you think about social media, and yes, that generally is going to be quite public, unless you take it off into a private sort of like stream. If I think about sort of text messaging, yes, that's private, and it's most people can do it. But if I also think about most people and think about, you talk about that private dimension, you think about most people having smartphones and stuff. What's the difference between the using sort of an email as a channel as compared to text, or do you think it's just they have similar attributes?
Yeah, and I think, over the years, email has kind of evolved into like a lot of companies that we know have actually even stopped using email as a channel. And I think that the main thing is just the customer's expectations that have been set over the years around email and their willingness to participate in email as a channel. Mm-hmm. Most of us, take time to open up emails. So it's not that we're quick on emails, and the response time on emails is perceived to be fairly high. Different even than Twitter, and certainly different than in a chat. And texting more follows that Twitter environment. Some of the big stats and why this stuff is interesting, however, human beings have been conditioned on text. People read 98% on average of the text messages that they receive. Right. So, versus you think about how many emails you put on ignore versus how many text messages you put on ignore. And those text messages are generally read inside of 5 minutes. So there's a very high, when that phone bings or whatever mark it is that you have as a notification that your text message is gone, people typically quickly move to that space, which is different than the cultural behavior that's evolved around email. So I think that's one of the main reasons that folks go there, and they like the quick messaging component that exists in it, versus the lengthier, communication that tends to come on email. It's very much a back and forth two-way channel versus I'm going to write you a long edict and you're going to write back to me with a very long response.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, what you're doing is you're tapping into something which is, well, I guess it's already familiar, already accepted, and already embraced by the majority of sort of people, and the response time is very good, and engagement is very kind of high. I think the one thing that kind of makes me think about this, because I've spoken to a few people about this in the past, is that I'm just sort of amazed at how text messaging has taken such a long time to be adopted as or to be developed as a channel. It's sort of quite astounding, really, given the its scale of adoption and familiarity with people.
Yeah, and I fully agree. I mean, the channel text messaging's been around for 22 years. I think it was just celebrating its 22nd birthday a couple months ago, and I think that as we talked about, why in business that would have happened, through that iPhone adoption and the battle with social media taking priority and then moving back. I think that those are, really core reasons why we didn't see that. But also, we just talked about the perceived value still on text messages, as the world of mobile has evolved and many people have all-inclusive texting plans. Certainly if you went back, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, often, text messaging was a cost-based item, like minutes on the phone or like data usage. And it was a pricey proposition as a consumer to engage with a company potentially through text. But in the last couple of years, we've certainly seen the pricing come down on text messaging, and wide-scale availability of those unlimited plans. That I think is another contributing factor.
And so,
so we look at it. For us launching text as a business last year, we've been in the social media space for 4.5 years here at In the Chat, and really it was last year that we decided to launch text, and it was really just because we believe that the time is right now for the market to be able to put that out and make that channel available to their customers on so many levels.
Okay, and is that just as simple as if a company wanted to do that and offer that as a channel? Is that as simple as they just offer them a short code number where they can text in and it gets routed to the right sort of people, or is it just that they just give them a mobile number, or how does it work for a firm to integrate it into their operations or integrate it into their channel mix?
Yeah, so in the chats world, we work with large scale enterprises, so we're always going to recommend a short code. Just purely from the perspective that the throughput is much higher on a short code. On a long code, a 10-digit number, those are built for guys like you and I, Adrian, to communicate personally between one another.
Right.
So they'll typically have a throughput of about 1 message per second is what you can generally send back and forth on a long code, a 10-digit number.
Uh-huh.
A short code will generally allow you to push 30 plus messages per second. So that's why the marketing world and kind of the premium services of the world have used short codes traditionally. And then as we move into the servicing world, if you're an enterprise, if you think about the kind of call volume you take today and the types of messaging volume that you may push, we just think it makes good sense to go onto a short code.
Yeah, sure.
There are, if you're a smaller business, you can now text enable, toll-free numbers, or you can get toll-free or any 10-digit number basically enabled for texting.
Uh-huh.
So there is, whether you're at the small to medium-sized business, scale, there's great opportunity for you in the texting world on those long codes. As you move up into the enterprise side, short codes are for sure the way to go. And absolutely, working with a company like In the Chat, you get your short code or you get your long code, that gets plugged into our system. You can promote that number, through a variety of ways, but as simple as putting it on your contact us page on your website. Customers text that number, their text arrives in our platform, and you're able to respond.
Does that not also can require that they need to have their mobile number registered in your CRM to make that kind of really efficient?
It can be. So, for us, we can drive that connectivity. I mean, anybody has the ability to connect. If you have that information existing, for your customer that this cell number belongs to Adrian, then it's information that can pop. For sure. If I don't have Adrian's cell number and Adrian texts in and it comes in just as a phone number, as I engage with Adrian, I can find out who he is.
Yeah.
And in the chat, our platform has built-in CRM capabilities, so if you want to do it standalone, it's got built-in, so I can know Adrian again in future when he texts, within the chat, or I can connect you into your existing CRM and move that data back and forth.
Okay.
But the same, texting in that regard, I would say is similar to Twitter. Many of us tweet anonymously. I don't tweet as, John Huehn, Adrian Swinsko follower. I tweet as, Super John 123. And so the same thing for text would apply as on Twitter. As I start tweeting with you, I may get information about you. I can put that into my CRM and know you going forward. I'm just associating with your phone number on text instead of your Twitter ID.
Okay. So if you were if you were to give some advice to any executives sort of listen to this, or any leaders listen to this, and they're thinking, "Well, that's interesting. We should investigate we should investigate text as a channel for our customers." What would be the sort of first three things that you would say you should they should do before they embark on this journey?
So I think the main thing, irrespective, so number one is to figure out what your use case is. Is it a servicing engagement? Is it you want to use this to grow sales? You want to provide a concierge type of service to high-value customers? You want to provide notifications, whatever, confirmation text at the end of service interactions. There's a lot of use case potential around text. So the first part is figure out what the use case is that's right for you, and we're always glad to talk to people about the types of use cases that we're seeing in their industry. Mm-hmm. The next part that I'd say is you have to start somewhere. It's a new channel, just like as folks put in their social channel or they put in their chat channel. You need to take a little bit of time to understand what is it that customers are going to text you about. When are they going to text you? What kind of volume are you going to see? So, you have to start somewhere because, it's an interesting channel to a lot of folks. And when we talk to people, they get very excited, but there's concern about, if I put this in, is my world going to blow up on text? And so what we suggest to companies is start with the servicing side, where you enable customers to be able to write into you and engage. And there are different ways that you can manage the flow as you go through what we would call proof of concept or your pilot stage. What some companies will do is to say, I'm going to put our number up on our website, but I'm only going to make it available to 10% of the visitors to my website to start, and then 20%, and then 40, and then 60, and then 100. So I can understand how much volume is going to come in and what are people texting me about, and I can plan that accordingly. Others will say, I'm going to start by putting this on my mobile site, and I'm not going to put it on my main site. I'm just going to put it on my mobile site, and same thing, I'm going to test and learn for the first little while until I can truly operationalize this in the right way in my business. Others will go buy a specific product in their business, or they'll go buy a part of the country if they want to launch. But my advice is always, you have to start somewhere. We can work with you to make sure that you're able to size and scope your program appropriately before you take this thing, much bigger out to your audience. But we think that the benefits of that are going to be tremendous for you.
Okay, thank you. I mean, that's fascinating. I'm just looking at sort of time here, and I think you may have already answered this, but I'll ask you again because this is the last question that I always kind of ask everybody in these podcasts, and the question is this: is there anything that you would like to shamelessly plug?
I would summarize the core strength of In the Chat platform as follows. Whether it's on text or whether it's on social, the key strength of In the Chat platform is text mining, and I haven't talked about that previously in this discussion, Adrian. We use text mining to read and categorize whether it's text-based content or social-based content as it comes to our platform. Mm-hmm. That enables us to route those texts to the right types of agents. So basically, it's a skills-based IVR, but for text. And that's important, we think, for those large-scale enterprises when you think about, maybe a company that's taking 1 million calls a month and a good portion of that in time moves over to the texting space. Those same traditional processes that we've used in the contact center to manage scale have to carry forward into these digital channels. So one of the main things for In the Chat is I say, we have that ability to route the right types of messages to the right agents so that you can scale, similar to you used to in the traditional contact center. Separate components, we have CRM that's built into our platform so you can be standalone. So if you want to start something in this world of texting, but aren't yet ready to make a big IT investment of connecting your texting platform with your CRM, we can get you up and running without that IT integration to start. And then once you're comfortable with the program, do that integration. And finally, just because we're a call center oriented company, our reporting and our and support that comes along with this platform is very aligned to what folks are used to traditionally. We talked about planning. How do I understand the types of things that people are going to text me, and how do I plan my staffing for that? Everything from reports for volume by half-hour interval by queue, available on In the Chat, performance-level reporting at the team and agent level, even verbatim case-based reporting that would be equivalent to your call listening is all available for quality assurance through In the Chat platform. So that's my shameless plug for In the Chat. We're very much built as a contact center solution and love to work with people in that space. And they can call us or text us at 855-678-2428 if they want to talk to us about it more, or visit us at inthechat.com.
John, thank you so much for sharing your time and your insights. And I tell you what, I look forward to being able to text whatever provider kind of via short codes to get some customer service. I think it just feels like a natural fit for customer service, and I look forward to its development because it's understood, it's private, it's discreet, it can be kind of done at kind of your own sort of pace. So I just think it's a channel that that's waiting to happen, I think, and so I look forward to its growth. But I just want to say thank you for sharing your insights and your time today. That's been great.
Thanks for having me on, Adrian. Great talking to you.